Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. Together with my guests, we provide the knowledge, skills, insight, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. On today's episode, I chat with Stacey Ferguson, a former attorney and the founder of Justice Fergie Lifestyle Media. Featured in Southern Living, Ebony Magazine, The Washington Post, Black Enterprise, NPR, and so much more, Stacey is a sought-after influencer coach, media personality, digital brand strategist, content creator, and public speaker. On today's show, we chat about her journey in the law, how she managed her 4-year transition out of the law, and she shares a lot of fantastic tips for lawyers who want to break into content creation. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome back to the Happy Lawyer Project, lawyers. I am really excited to introduce today's guest, Stacey Ferguson. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have been excited to have you on for a while now, and I don't even know if you know how much of a secret stalker I've been. But for those out there who don't know who you are, I'd love if you could just start by sharing a brief description of who you are and what it is that you do.
Absolutely. So let's see. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I have ever since law school, actually. I came to D.C. to attend Howard Law School and have been here ever since. I started out by going to corporate and practicing at a AM 100 law firm. In 2002 is when I came out of law school. And I did corporate law there. I did real estate and also privacy and entertainment. And then after that, I went into the federal government. And actually, I was at the Federal Trade Commission doing advertising and high-tech goods and services internet law for about 7 years. While I was there, in the intervening years, I also had 3 children. And that's important because, right, just that, you know. And that's important because, well, it's important because it's important. But then also, it prompted me to start a mom blog with 2 friends that had gone to Howard Law School with me. And we wrote online starting in 2006, so super early days of blogging and barely any social media. And we started writing about what it was like to be moms and lawyers and juggling all of that entails, which you know all too well. And we just had a really fun time with it. Our posts were really like corny, but very transparent. And we started to build community through our blog posts, not necessarily planning on anything coming from the blog other than this is just an outlet for us to tell stories. And then what we found about 3 years in is that there was this whole industry called blogging where people actually made money and started businesses and all of these cool things. And we really didn't know much about it. So because we're lawyers, we started doing lots of research and attending blog conferences, connecting with folks and companies that were engaging bloggers to do paid work and said, we need to create this space for bloggers that look like us because we were all bloggers of color. And so in 2009, we came up with and launched the concept of Blogalicious, which was the first ever blogging conference for multicultural influencers. So that's a little bit about like how it started. And then that was 2009. So for the last 9 years, we've been hosting Blogalicious annually, and it's just grown into an amazing community, annual conference, marketing network, as well as like consulting and training agency, and really like an empowerment community for women of color, multicultural women who want to create content and turn that into their own platform. Yeah. And so then about 6 years ago, I made the decision to stop practicing law to pursue this media business full time. And I've never looked back.
I am so excited by your story because you were on the very leading edge of blogging. I feel like you started blogging before. I mean, there's no way you could have known what it would be because no one knew what it could be back then.
No one. Yeah.
And yet something kept you blogging for 3 years. What do you think that was?
Honestly, it was A couple of things. So, as an attorney, oftentimes, most of the time, we don't have a creative outlet at work. And so I think for us, it was a really nice chance to just kind of unwind and talk without any pretenses. And here's why. Because we were all employed and working, we created aliases for ourselves. And so that's why all of my social media handles and my website is Justice Fergie, because that was the alias that we all came up with. So we were Justice and then whatever our last name was, like a play on it. And so isn't that
cute?
It's so corny.
It's so cute, especially for like a blog in like 2006. That's like right on trend.
It was perfect for 2006. And wait for it, the name of our blog was Mama Law. So, and we actually created a manifesto for working moms. It was really funny. And so I think because, we had the slight cover of anonymity, we were talking about things not necessarily related to work, but really being able to share what was going on with us personally. It just became a really nice outlet. And then the other thing that kept us going for 3 years is people commenting and saying, oh my gosh, your story made me laugh today. Or no way, that happened to me too with my kid, And those were the days when people actually left comments on things that you wrote. So that, I think, by far was the coolest.
So that's my other question. And I was going to talk about this later, but I want to ask you now. For people who are interested in creating content in 2018, the market, it seems so saturated, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or blogging. It just feels like everybody's trying to do it. It's impossible to get eyeballs. It's impossible to get comments, engagements lower than ever. Is it still possible? Like what are you telling people at these conferences to kind of keep them inspired that they should go out there and put their stake in the ground?
Yes. Yeah. And you're not wrong. So what I say, a good friend of mine, he says blogging is dead. And I say, it's not dead. It just needs to be reimagined. And so back then you could have a blog and that could be it. And people could probably find it and read it and leave you comments and you could do a lot. But now because it's so saturated and since I started, right, Twitter came along, Instagram came along, Pinterest came along, Snap came along, like all of those things weren't there. So now, because the space is so cluttered, my advice to women is always this. And actually, I forgot to say, about 4 years ago, I started coaching women who are content creators and entrepreneurs who want to build brands. And this is what I tell them. I say, your blog, and really any content vehicle. So for you, it could be this podcast, right? Use it as an opportunity to position yourself as a subject matter expert. Use it as a lead magnet, meaning an opportunity to attract followers, readers, listeners, and bring them into your space so that you can show them the next thing you have to offer. And so the way I see it, your blog or your podcast or your book or whatever it is, it's just one component of this media brand that you need to have in 2018.
I think that's fair. And I think that I want to push you a little bit because one of the issues that I think keeps a lot of people from starting is that feeling like because the market is so saturated, you have to be everywhere and you have to be kind of perfect right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're not even going to make a drop, and it's so noisy out there that if you aren't kind of on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and kind of have a presence and have an email list and come out with really strong, with everything lined up, it's not even worth starting.
All the things. You might as well just pack it up. And
exactly.
Yeah,
and lawyers are like that already. Like we tend to be type A over planners.
Totally. I actually just had a brand strategy client who is an attorney, and this was totally her issue. Like she felt like everything had to be perfect out the gate, or why bother? And that is actually the opposite of what this whole online space is about. If you think about it, who do you literally see online that's perfect all the time? No one. It's just that you're ascribing them this, ideal that, oh, they're so amazing, but they're amazing because they're doing it. That's the only bar. Just get out there and do it. You will only get better whether it's blogging, social media-ing, whatever it is, you'll only get better by doing it. And you'll learn strategies, shortcuts, tips, tricks. You'll get in the groove of finding your voice, which does take a long time. But the key is just to get in there and start. Realize that absolutely no one knows what they're doing. Literally, I promise. Even the big fancy bloggers that look like they've got it all together, trust me, I know many of them and they don't either. But what they do have is consistency and a clear understanding of what their message is. And I think if you have those two things, you can do a lot. And then to your other point about feeling like you have to be on every platform, please don't be on every platform. If you are, you'll be driving yourself nuts and you'll not be doing good work on any of them. So my recommendation is always to pick two, right? If you're just starting out, two at the most platforms. And the way that you pick is that you decide, what is my message? Who am I serving? And for those people that I'm serving, what is their preferred platform? Are they listening to podcasts? Are they watching video? Are they tweeting? Are they on Instagram? So let that lead you to the different platforms that you should be spending your time on. And literally get one down pat first before you jump to the next one. So like from a brand strategy standpoint, of course, if you want to register your name and your handle and all of them, go ahead and do that. But don't feel pressure to be sharing content on all of them every day because you'll just drive yourself crazy.
I love talking branding and social media, but I want to take one big step back because I also want to talk about kind of how you made the transition, because obviously my audience are lawyers and I think a lot of them know that their life is going to have different seasons and that it may eventually be a season where they're no longer practicing or they're transitioning out of the law. So I'd be interested to know what that transition was like for you. What was the catalyst for the decision 6 years ago to start your transition out of the law?
So I have a gradual catalyst and then I have this is the moment. So the gradual one is the more and more I was blogging and going to conferences and doing brand ambassadorships for different companies and really learning about the space, the more I was loving it and realizing, oh my gosh, this is like making me excited, right? I look forward to this part of my day. And the more I was getting excited about that, the less excited I was getting about work. And because I'm a lawyer, right, and we are perfectionists and tend to be type A, when I realized I was not showing up with my best self at work, that's when I knew I had to make a change because it's not me, right? I was like, the fact that I am not giving it my all, I am like not really caring about this assignment or this project or this client, like that was a red flag to me that I needed to make a change. So that was kind of the gradual one. And then to be 100% honest, the one that was like, okay, this is it, was the nanny that we had for our children got married and was moving to a different city. Like, see, you understand, right? Like,
I would die. I would move. Yes. We would move too.
You would move. You would move or you would quit. You would be like, this, I can't. Because as you know, finding a great nanny is like everything. And then, I always say she was really there for me and not for the kids. Like she held me together. And once she was gone, I was like, I just couldn't fathom going through the process of finding someone new, getting them all onboarded in our family, developing that trust. And like, it was just too much. And so when she was gone, I was like, all right, this is the time. But I had already been thinking about it. And then I just want to share this one piece, right? People think like, oh my gosh, you just up and quit. That's so cool. I want to do that. And I wanted to set the record straight that is absolutely not the case. So I left my agency in 2012. Right? And Blogalicious started in 2009. So there was a good 3.5, almost 4 years of testing this side business to make sure that it was viable. And so that's always one of my recommendations to folks who are thinking about transitioning and leaving their day job. Like, make sure that it works. Make sure that you understand the business model. Make sure that the revenue streams are viable and get a sense of what those numbers look like so that you can start to save and plan to adjust your lifestyle so that it works. So know that it was not overnight. There was like a good 4 years of going to work during the day, coming home, doing the mom thing. Then once the kids were in bed, from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., literally almost every night, working on the side thing. So that's one. And then two, like I said, use your day job as your first investor. So, people are like, oh my God, I hate my job. Like, yes, you hate it, but leverage it. You're fortunate to have a job, right? If you're an attorney, it's probably one that pays decently. So take that time to save as much as you can so that you do have a cushion when it's time to transition. And then also think about what resources, trainings, programs, opportunities the HR department at your place of employment is offering that you can take advantage of as an employee that will serve you once you are an entrepreneur. Because there's so many programs like leadership trainings and, all of those sorts of things that are totally going to help you when you're on the outside that we are taking for granted when we're on the inside. And trust me, HR will be so happy that you're interested.
I love that advice because I completely agree. And that's one of the things I miss the most about being at the firm is how easy it was to get people to agree to send me to stuff.
Yes. Listen. And then now that I don't have that and I'm so jealous, I remember the days, right?
Oh my
when
gosh.
You could just submit it and they'd be like, oh yeah. First of all, they're like, oh, you're a woman? Perfect. Yeah, we need to say that we sent you to this women's conference or, this diversity.
And nobody ever asks. Nobody ever asks to go to, well, I mean, nobody ever asked to go to law listed kind of tried and true conferences. So when you bring something to them that you're like, oh, this would, be good client development. This would be good, learning about this new market and I could do a CLE on it. They're like, yep. Really?
Absolutely.
Great.
100%. Yeah, I totally believe in that. And then just the third piece of advice, if you're thinking about transitioning, is to really start to communicate with those people who are going to be part of your support system. So obviously for me, my husband was number one. So having those conversations, is this feasible? How will you feel about it? What will your expectations be? Financially, what does this look like? Because, they're going along with you for the ride and you want to make sure that you're all on the same page.
On that first piece of advice specifically about how long it might take and testing the viability of this new path into entrepreneurship in this case, how did you stay motivated? Because I tend to be someone who, when I want to get out of a job, I want to be gone yesterday.
Yeah. Me too. It's a great question. And my answer won't be fair, but hear me out. So it just so happened, I was really fortunate that, how they say art imitates life? Well, my life started imitating my art. And here's what I mean by that. I was at the Federal Trade Commission. I was doing advertising and internet law. And 2009, remember, that was when did I get there? 2008.
I see where you're going.
See where I'm going? So I marked time in my head by which kid I had. So yeah, the middle. So 2006. So right, you see where I'm going. So the internet was exploding. Privacy law was this newfangled thing. Social media, it was Facebook first, was this crazy new thing that had privacy implications. So I got assigned to a lot of that work. Things you probably don't even know, Napster.
I remember Napster of course, from college.
Yeah, and LimeWire. Yep. And all of those were the cases that I worked on because they didn't know what to do with these things, right? And so my work started to imitate the internet that I was falling in love with. And so over the years, I got to be a subject matter expert at work on social media, on privacy, on FTC disclosure guidelines for influencers and bloggers, right? I got to help draft pieces of that. I got to hold town halls and go do business education. So my answer is not fair because I got to do some cool stuff at work too. And I kind of got my fix that way. So, but I think just in general to stay motivated, keep doing the stuff you enjoy on the side. And kind of set some milestones for yourself so that you can see this is not forever. This is temporary, but it's a means to an end. And, if I take these steps, I will eventually get there. And I am working towards doing something that I actually love.
I actually think that's a very fair answer. And I think that not enough people make small transitions. So it is possible. I mean, the law touches every aspect of society. So if there's an area in which you're interested in getting involved, there's probably a way to start transitioning into that role in a legal capacity to use it as a platform if you want to transition out of the law eventually. But I think people are just so eager to get where they're going.
Yes.
That they get impatient. I am one of said people, so I'm certainly not judgmental of those people.
You're empathetic, yeah. And I should have mentioned this, and it's funny, this might be my first podcast run by a lawyer, so I get to talk about things that I don't normally. But when I was at the firm, I made some adjustments, not because I was ready to leave, although maybe I was, but because I started to have a family. And so after my first daughter, I came back and I had been in litigation department. And you know how that goes when you're trying to look for work-life balance. So when I came back from maternity leave, I realized, okay, this litigation associate schedule, this is not going to work for me. What can I do within this, construct that I can make a small adjustment with that will work for me? And so I first asked to go part-time. And it's funny, as you have a child, right, you get bold because you realize things are put in perspective and you lose a lot of
agree. I tell people all the time that having kids saved my legal career. Because it finally gave me the power I needed to ask for what I needed out of my career. Whereas before I was ready to walk away without even asking because I just thought it wasn't going to work.
Absolutely. So that's it. You took the words out of my mouth. So that's it. So I asked for part-time and what was the worst they were going to say is no, right? What do I lose? But I was no longer afraid. So I asked and guess what? They said yes. I was like, really? Okay. So I went part-time, but law firm part-time doesn't really work. So then I said, yes, I'm in the privacy litigation section, but those folks over in healthcare and corporate, they look like they're having pretty chill days. And they're not here on the weekends when I am or late at night, right? So I went into the managing partner and I said, can I go over to healthcare? And they were like, sure. And I was like, really? Okay. So I went over there, didn't know a thing about it, wasn't in love with it, but it worked for my lifestyle at the time. And I got to learn new things and, beef up the transactional side of my resume. So it was a win all around. So then by the time it was time for me to go to the government, I had already felt comfortable making that transition because I had made those small changes over the previous couple of years. So you're 100% right. It really does force you to be brave and to not be afraid to ask for what you want.
I think that we're very similar in that we prioritize lifestyle and then chase opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do that, it's hard to go wrong because I think that generally speaking, life is directional. And if you're making choices that are in the general right direction, things will turn out as opposed to you need to plot exact path.
True. Yes. And I always say I'm very much also led by intuition too. Mm-hmm. And I think that plays a big part of it.
Absolutely. And so we've touched on this topic a little, but I want to talk about it some more because one of the ways that I first got to see you and see you speak was at Alt Summit. And I, for those of who don't know out there, Alt Summit is a very in-demand conference for the creative entrepreneur types. And I'm really interested kind of in how you first became so interested in attending conferences and what do you think lawyers get wrong? If you go to a lawyer's conference and then you go to any other conference, they're complete. I try to go to 4 to 6 conferences a year. Mm-hmm. Only 1 or 2 will be legal because I just can't go to that many legal conferences. It's just not my, but I love these other spaces. And I want to know your kind of take on how would you explain to lawyers who've only ever been to legal conferences that their firm sends them to, what else is out there?
Oh my goodness. There's a whole other world out there, guys. It's kind of mind-boggling. And you don't know it exists until you dive in it. So don't be afraid. And maybe you start by tapping into, what are your hobbies? Like, what are you fascinated by? What would you like to learn more about? And sign up for a conference, in that vein. So let me see, I'm trying to think. I think I started really going to these blogging conferences in earnest when we started blogging and realized that there was this whole industry out there, and wanting to learn more and wanting to meet people who understood the space and had similar goals. And so I remember, going to Blissdom at the time, and Type A Parent. You remember these names? And of course, Blog Her. And the Blog Her founders actually became good friends and gave us a lot of mentorship in us doing our own conference. So how they're different from a legal conference. Oh my gosh. So it almost seems wrong to even call them conferences, because when you think conference, you think everyone's in a room, sitting down, listening to an instructor, taking notes, right? And that's your typical legal conference. At these blogger events, blogger conferences, or even, marketing or women's empowerment, there's such a different energy. People are there, I think, primarily for the community aspect and for the networking and support. So I think that in and of itself changes the vibe a lot. And then the learning is secondary. So I remember after one Blogalicious, we got a testimonial or feedback on the post-conference survey, and someone says, Blogalicious feels like a party where you just happen to learn something. And I loved that, because I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted. And I think it's because, after 10 years of going to these legal conferences, I didn't want it to feel like that. I wanted it to feel like a celebration. And for the first many years, we literally called it a celebration of diversity in social media. So that when you got there and there were parties and receptions and I don't even know, test drives by Kia and, yoga on the rooftop, you would feel like, oh, this is not a regular conference. This is really us celebrating our community and what we're passionate about.
It's so much more of like an event.
Yes.
And there's very much a desire to create a feeling when you get there that you've come to a place where you belong.
Correct.
And I think there's so many conferences on my hit list that I absolutely adore, and none of them happen to be legal. And I don't know why the law, I don't know why the law can be interesting. They're very interesting, very dynamic people in our profession. And even when they try to do these events, they pick spa and golf, which is
yes,
exactly what you would imagine a law conference would pick as the thing to
activity.
Do. Yeah. And it's so in the box.
Yeah. But I think it's the industry, right? The industry is still very much in the box. And, I'm sure we could debate the reasons for that. But there is this fear of once you go outside of the box, you lose, I don't know, credibility, or I don't even know what it is. But there is that apprehension about doing things differently or kind of letting your guard down.
I wonder what it is. And I'm excited to see kind of what the next generation of lawyers does, because I do see change in kind of more of the virtual lawyers and the lawyers who, serve influencers, serve creative entrepreneurs who are in those spaces. So they see what's possible in these communities and want to create a community for themselves. And I'm excited. I'm hopeful.
Me too. I think it can only get better, right?
Oh, well, it can get worse.
You said it, not me.
To be fair, I do see some places where it's gotten better. And I have been to some conferences that I see kind of, there is, that sparkle of hope. But as we see with everything in the law, we are a slow moving profession.
Oh, yes. Yes. So while I'm talking to you and you talked about, the evolution, like with the virtual lawyers, et cetera, you reminded me that one of my best friends, she's also an attorney, she is studying what's called the new law business model. Have you heard of it?
No.
So apparently, I'm going to pull it up so I don't misspeak, but it's this whole new law business model. Sorry. It's this whole concept of approaching the law from like a place of, authenticity and serving. And I'm trying to
I wish
find
that wasn't considered new.
I know. Isn't that unfortunate? Yes. Like engagement, they've got a whole different philosophy. Anyway, check it out. I don't know much about it. Yeah.
Very fascinating. So before we go off conferences and kind of wrap things up, I just have one last thing, because you were a speaker at Alt Summit, and I think there are people who want to be seen as an expert, and I think there's a lot of value to going to conferences that are outside of your space, because to kind of our earlier point about how slow the law is to change, a great way to see what other people are doing in other professions is to go to these conferences and offer to speak at them. What advice do you have for people who are looking to be seen as an expert and want to pitch themselves and, get opportunities at conferences?
For sure. So a couple things. One, make sure you have some type of online presence. It can be your LinkedIn profile. That's fine. It can be, a static page on a site. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but make sure you do have some presence so that if someone like the conference organizer Googles you, they can find something. And when they get there, you need to show them what you are considered an expert on. So you want to list out a couple of subject matter areas. You probably also want to have one or two signature talks that you feel very comfortable in speaking on. You also want to include maybe any links to anything you've written that can back you up and show that you know what you're talking about, maybe other places you've spoken at, things of that nature. So make sure you just have some type of online presence that people can find and connect with. The other thing that you want to do is create a speaker kit, and don't be scared by it or overwhelmed by the thought of it. It can literally be one page. But on the speaker kit, you want to include a headshot, a short bio, again, what your signature topics are, what kind of audiences you prefer to speak in front of, or what audiences resonate the best with your content. What format do you prefer to speak in? Is it instructional? Is it a keynote? Is it a panel style? Those types of things. And then maybe one or two testimonials from folks that have heard you speak, sharing their feedback. And then, of course, your contact information. And if you've got that one pager, it really will set you apart in the sea of everyone else applying to speak, because it will show that you've taken the time to prepare this, you're professional, you're thoughtful, and you can submit it in conjunction with whatever they're asking you to do to submit. And I actually have, if you look on Facebook for me, my business page, Justice Fergie, you'll find a video, a Facebook Live that I did where I'm explaining the things that blog conferences look for when deciding whether to choose a speaker or how to choose a speaker. So if blog conferences are something you're interested in, definitely check out that video.
Fantastic. I will include a link to that on the website in the show notes so people can find that as well there. So what do you have coming up this year? I'd love to know what's new and exciting on the blog, with the conference, anything to share?
Yes. So this year we are turning 10. Oh my goodness. I know. And because I like shaking things up, instead of doing the regular Blogalicious conference, which is typically like 4 days, we are doing mini events all around the country and actually one internationally. So our next event is going to be in Quebec City. So that's exciting because I'm also Canadian, so I get to go home. But we are partnering with Women in Travel Summit, and we will be doing a programming track at that conference. So if you're into travel, lifestyle, food, culture, that's going to be a really amazing event to attend. So look for Women in Travel Summit. And actually, if you want to register, you can use code 25Blogalicious for a discount. And then after that, we're going to be doing an event in Chicago in August. and in San Francisco in October. And these events are actually going to be called, or they are called, the Me Experience. And the Me, the ME stands for Media plus Entrepreneurship, because we're finding that our social media influencers are now really media brands that are larger than their Instagram profile, for example, and they are truly entrepreneurs who are building businesses. So these are going to be events really tailored to helping them grow their business of being an influencer.
How exciting. It seems like you, and I don't know if you know Jamie Lieberman.
I know the name, but yeah.
You seem to have the same conference schedule. So I'm surprised your paths haven't crossed, because I think she spoke at Women Travel Summit last year.
Okay.
She's fantastic. She's been on the show. She runs #legal, which is...
Oh, okay. Duh. They're going to kill me. So Jamie and Danielle.
Yes.
Yes. I know them.
I was like, I'm sure you must. Because...
I was like, wait, the name is familiar. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Danielle is awesome. But yeah, they're great.
They're my unofficial mentors. I just tell them that they're my mentors, and then I make them mentor me, even though they're so incredibly busy, but they're so gracious with their time.
You really are. I actually did their podcast a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. I love their podcast, and then I have too many podcasts on my playlist. I never get through all of them anymore. So I just want to wrap things up and ask, what's the best way for people to continue following you, learn more about what you're up to, and get involved in your community?
Yeah, so we are on social media, obviously, everywhere. And you can find us at Blogalicious, so BE Blogalicious. And then personally, I'm everywhere at Justice Fergie and at justicefergie.com and at blogalicious.com. And, the best way to stay in touch is to follow us on social and to join our email list, because we are always sharing. Oh, and then also we have a Facebook community on Facebook called the Blogalicious Social Suite. So if you just search for Blogalicious Social Suite, you'll be able to join the community where people are sharing resources, support, networking, events, all of that good stuff in there.
Fantastic. And again, I will include all those links for people. Thank you so, so much for coming on today and sharing your story and being really such a positive energy around what the seasons of our career can look like. Because I think that people have a lot of fear of what it looks like to leave the law. And it's great to see that it can be, you can make it work in the law, you can make it work transitioning out of the law, and you can make it work after the law if that's what you're looking to do. So I appreciate you sharing that with my audience today. And the last question I want to ask you, which I ask everybody who comes on the show, is what do you think separates lawyers who are happy from lawyers who struggle to find happiness in life with a law degree?
That's a big question. Honestly, I think the ability to be your authentic self. So I think there are definitely people out there who they are a lawyer to their core, right? That they've always wanted to do that. They get enjoyment and pleasure out of it. And while they're doing that, they feel like they are being their true selves. And I think those are the people that are happy. I think the people that may not be as happy is they feel like they are not being able to be their full selves in their work. So maybe their creativity is being stifled. Maybe they have other interests they want to pursue, but they're not able to because of time constraints or what have you. I think that's where the unhappiness comes in. Yeah. So that would be my answer.
Well, it's a wonderful answer. I think that so many people live their life kind of hoping to one day have a chance to live their life, Yes,
absolutely.
It's unfortunate. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for doing this work. I mean, you really are, trailblazing and helping so many listeners who are struggling with all of these issues and giving us a platform to talk about them.
Thanks so much for listening this week, you guys, and joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please feel free to share it with your friends. And I'd love for you to head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's already left a review, sent me an email, DM'd me on Instagram, or reached out to me in any other way. I truly appreciate you and love hearing from you. And I want to just remind everyone that this week's sponsor is Common Bond. So if you're considering refinancing your student loans this year, I would definitely head over to commonbond.co/happy lawyer to check them out. As a reminder, you'll receive a $200 cash bonus for using that link. Until next week, I hope everyone finds their happy.